Hello, everybody. I'm Scott Firkin, coming to you from the Hill House on Devil's Backbone, an open-air music venue atop Kenwood Hill in the south end of Louisville, Kentucky. It's time for another in our series of conversations with guest artists appearing at the Hill House, and tonight I'll be speaking with Dave Clark, renowned jazz saxophonist, music educator, and community activist, recently named director of the esteemed Jazz Studies program at the University of Louisville School of Music. Dave, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I should say welcome back because you've been to the Hill House several times before, right?
Indeed, I've been very fortunate, yes.
Okay, well, we're thrilled to have you again. This is the last show of the 2023 season, and can't think of a more fitting way to wrap it all up. So before we talk about the music tonight, I want to talk a little bit about you and get to know you a little better. Where were you born and raised?
I am born and raised in a little town in Arkansas called Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Maybe 80,000 people, and stayed there really until I went off to college.
Okay. Do you have any siblings?
Oh yeah, I have. There were 5 of us. My oldest sister and my middle sister unfortunately had passed, but my youngest sister and my younger brother are still alive.
So where do you fall in the birth order?
I'm the baby.
Okay, good for you. I'm the baby of my family as well, so comes with certain advantages.
Indeed. And I was like a oopsie baby, right? My parents didn't really think they were going to have any more kids. And
Surprise.
Yeah, did.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, good. Well, can you give us an idea of what life was like growing up in South Central Arkansas?
Oh, it was the deep South. It was a small community, but a very tight-knit community. I would say that church was central to my upbringing. The church that we went to was just really, I could walk through my backyard, through the back gate, and right into the church. That's where I really went to church until I left Pine Bluff, and so it was central, and so it was very much spiritual, very much a lot of love, and a whole lot of good food.
Oh, great. Well, can you describe any early experiences that sort of sparked your interest in music and maybe influenced the way you grew up?
Yeah, I tell you, the first musical experience I can remember was in church, and I was just a kid. I couldn't be any more than, 8, maybe 9 years old, if that old. And I was sitting in church, and the church was singing "What a Friend We Have in Jesus." And just the feeling in the church in that particular moment just welled up, and everybody was in that moment and singing that song. And the thing is that I understood, because the community was so small, all the things that everybody was going through. Mr. Buck, who was ushering at the side door, had cancer, and he was fighting cancer, and his wife was sitting on the front bench, and she was sickly, and she was very frail. And so we just kind of knew what everybody was going through, but at that particular moment, with all of those voices singing, it transcended everything, and everybody was going to be okay.
Right.
And so, in essence, that feeling that I had in that church at that moment is what I chase every time I pull my horn out the case.
Awesome. Well, who were some of your early influencers, either musical artists or maybe instructors or teachers that you had?
Yeah, well, my beginning band instructor, Carl Lott, was fantastic. My middle school band director, Mr. Carlton, was absolutely fantastic because he not only taught us to be technical, but he taught us to be musical, to say something when we played, and he spent so much time with us, and he was great. I had Mr. Lott again in high school. I had several different band directors by the time I got to high school. There was a different one every year I was in high school. But those two in particular, and then when I went to school for a while in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, I had some professors there who were very influential. Craig Hamilton, who really introduced me to jazz. I'd never played jazz in my life.
Okay.
And I'm walking down the hall one day as a freshman, scared to death of everything. He says, "You play saxophone, you're going to be in jazz band." And I said, "Yes, sir." And so I show up to jazz band, and I sit down in the chair, and I had no idea about anything. And we're playing a tune called Scott's Place, and there's a second tenor solo. And he pointed to me to take a solo, and I just stopped. I just looked at him, and he said, "Why aren't you playing?" I said, "Well, because all the music stopped. It's just got these letters and signs all over the place. I don't know what any of that means." He said, "Oh, man, that's the solo changes right there on the tenor solo. 1, 2, 3, crack." The band pops off again, and they're playing. And once again, I just sat there. because I didn't know what to do. And he cut the band off again, and he said, "Why aren't you playing?" And I said, "Well, man, there are no notes. The notes stop, and so I don't know what I'm supposed to play." He said, "You're supposed to improvise. Those are chord changes. Right on the second tenor solo. 1, 2, 3, pop." And I sat there again. He cut the band off again, and this time he was quite irritated.
Sure.
And he looks at me and he says, "Why aren't you playing?" Because there are no notes on the horn. I mean, I went on the paper. I was just shaking. And he said, "The notes are here and they're here, and I don't care what you play, but you play something." Okay. Second tenor solo. 1, 2, 3, pop. And I played something. And it was real sad.
Oh.
And everybody in the band knew it was sad, and he knew it was sad. I knew it was sad. And when I got done, he just looked at me and he went, "Yeah, that's jazz."
Okay.
And I thought to myself, "No, that's sad." But I kept at it, and he was very helpful in trying to guide me along. But that's where the bug really kind of bit for jazz.
That's awesome. Well, you now head a program that you were once a student in, quite an impressive educational background, in addition to a bachelor's degree in music and music education and a master's in music and jazz performance at UofL. You've also obtained a doctorate in philosophy from Bellarmine, and I understand working on a second doctorate in higher education, leadership?
No. It's all the same.
Okay.
So the doctorate that I'm finishing a dissertation now, and it's called Sounding the Human Condition, Music as a Conduit for Social Justice Issues.
Okay.
And so I'm finishing up that dissertation right now.
Well, I was interested in the interplay, what you would have to say about the interplay between music and philosophy.
Well, man, and you ask a million musicians, you'll get a million different answers, but I'll just speak personally. I'm really interested in my why. My playing is all wrapped up in why I'm playing. And my why is wrapped up in why I'm alive. Right? And so for me, the two things don't really separate.
I see.
When I'm playing, what I'm really trying to do is get to the best of who I am. And jazz is the ultimate teacher in that. It makes us go in there, find out who we really are, and then deal with the things that we don't like, and really use the things that we do like to help us and then to express that. And you've got to have a why of why you're playing. It can't just be to make the changes, and it can't just be to beat your chest and say, "I sound real good." You sound real good for what? Who your sounding good is going to help uplift what? Your good is going to be good for somebody else in what way? So that's really the only way I know how to. I'm a kind of lights on, lights off cat. I mean, when I'm playing, it's all out, and when I'm not, I'm not.
Okay. Well, I know that after graduating, you served as a teaching assistant at UofL on jazz improvisation, jazz styles, and African American music, among other courses. Then you became director of Bellarmine's Jazz Studies program.
I sure did.
Tell us a little bit about your duties and courses in that role at Bellarmine.
Wow. Well, I taught all the jazz courses because I was really the only quote-unquote full-time jazz instructor. So I taught jazz harmony and arranging. I taught jazz history. I taught jazz improvisation. I taught the larger jazz ensemble. I taught a funk ensemble. And I also taught courses like Jazz, Blues, and Beyond, which in essence was African American music history course. I also taught a course called Pop Music and Human Rights, and I also taught a course called Pop Music and American Culture.
I saw that. Music, Community, and Healing was another one. So tell us a little bit about the connection between music and social change from your point of view.
Well, music is a reflection of the human condition. And for many people who have been fighting for social change, one of the main places that they actually had voice and retained voice and some autonomy was in their music. And so that goes all the way back to the beginnings of jazz. It goes all the way back in some essences to the way music is viewed in African culture and just kind of the way it's a part of everyday life and part of all kinds of rituals, and they believe in the healing and being able to talk to ancestors, and all of that was kind of brought over in many ways with the enslaved Africans as they came over. And so there's a transition of all of that happens once they reach the United States, but it still manifests itself. It still manifests itself, be it in jazz, be it in R&B, be it in soul, be it in whatever. It's all still there.
Okay. Well, I know you've been quite involved in our community. In fact, received Bellarmine's William T. Miles Memorial Award for Community Service in 2021. Can you describe some of the work that led to that recognition?
Oh, wow. Well, I worked at, we were trying to bring a music program to the Nativity School downtown. And we did quite a bit of work in trying to make that happen. I also taught in the Brown learning community, which meant that we also went out and we did lots of community service projects. But I was really, really kind of proud of the fact that a lot of our students that came through the program, because it was such an important part of what we did, even after they graduated, they kept on doing community work. I mean, one-offs are great, but real change only happens through consistent and persistence, right? Okay. And so it was great to show up one day and do something really nice and walk away, but to have a really kind of sustained program. So a lot of the stuff that I was involved in has been really good as far as having a sustained kind of presence and press for change in a really kind of good and healthful and healing way.
I know you've done some work with the Louisville Boys Choir, the West End School, the Leopard Percussionists. So I'm sure that's also been very...
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you can involve young people, I mean, because that's really where, I mean, it's the beauty of teaching, right? You see what humanity could be in them. Right?
Well, how important do you think it is for children and particularly at-risk youth to be exposed to music education, music instruction?
I think it's crucial. I mean, in every experience that I've had, sometimes kids don't understand the power of their voice, and they don't have a way to release some of the things that's pent up in them. Some people do it in rap. Some people do it through hip-hop. My main concern is that kids don't walk away from instruments in the process, right? Playing the saxophone, playing the trumpet, playing the piano, physically also playing an instrument, where they get to manipulate the sound and the rhythm and the whole 9 yards, get into kind of harmony and express themselves that way. But it is, every experience that I've had with working with young people, it's been empowering for them. And I'm as much interested in empowering them as anything else. I mean, everybody has the good stuff in them. I really do believe that everybody has good in them, but we have to go in there and get it. And music is a great way. It's a great avenue for us to travel to go in there and get it.
Fantastic. Well, tell us a little bit about the Louisville Jazz Initiative. What is LJI and why does it exist?
Louisville Jazz Initiative is is intergenerational, so that's very important to us. So there's all kinds of ages, and we're really interested in teaching the music and not leaving out any of the cultural elements that are inside of the music as well. But community service and through healing, through community projects, we do educational projects as well, where we go and we do some work with JCPS, or we do stuff with LCCC, and we're just kind of working with kids and giving concerts, and just kind of anything that we can do to kind of help in the promotion of the healing and the teaching of jazz.
Okay. Well, a quick perusal of your CV shows me that you've performed all over the world. I noted Italy, Spain, Switzerland, Barbados, a lot of Barbados. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the performances or venues or artists that stand out in your memory?
Wow. I tell you, the first one that comes to mind is I was very fortunate enough to play the Umbria Jazz Festival in Perugia, Italy. And it was a surreal experience for me, because I remember getting off the tour bus, and as we were walking to the hotel, Pat Metheny and Michael Brecker are sitting at a table like having coffee or whatever. Right? And we're just kind of walking by like, that's Brecker and Metheny. And as I walked into the hotel, Jazz and Lincoln Center Orchestra is there checking in. They're all checking in at the same hotel.
Wow.
And then James Moody, who had come to one of the jazz festival concerts, and he was the artist, came up and gave me a kiss on the cheek. He gave me a kiss on the cheek, and he said, "Little Ball," and I couldn't see him, so I didn't know who it was. And I turned around, and it's James Moody. So that was really surreal, because I was like up close and in the space of all of these really fantastic musicians and really, really interesting human beings.
Yeah. Well, I know you've also recorded music, so what's What's the difference? How different is it being in the studio versus live performance?
Well, oftentimes in the studio there's a deal of isolation where like you're in a booth and they kind of close it off, and then the drums are in another booth, and so you kind of have a booth kind of situation. We're in a live performance, everybody is out there in space, right? And so it's a little different, but I think, and it's one of the things I think that's important with our students to understand too, the best thing is to be able to do all of it, right? And so it's different, and you approach it with no less heart, but it's a little technical thing. Either you use earphones or you don't. I tend to like just use it with one on and one off because I still want to hear myself in context to the space that I'm playing in. So that, playing in the studio has its challenges, but the fruits can be really, really sweet if done well.
Tell us a little bit about a collaborative recording project, I think with Anson Banks, Legacy, honoring Louisville's African-American jazz musicians.
Yeah, that was a great project that Anson put together, and I was fortunate enough to be asked to play on it along with Tyrone Wheeler on bass and Jonathan Higgins, the great Jonathan Higgins on drums, and Theo Richardson on drums as well, and Kendall Keys Carter. And I think part of what Anson's thing was we were kind of intergenerational. Jonathan Higgins being the oldest, I guess I would be kind of the next, and then Anson, and then Kendall. All right, so we were all kind of intergenerational, but we just kind of took a look at some of the important people who were in the Louisville jazz scene and paid homage to them. And Anson and Kendall wrote some really great work, some great music for that, and we had a fantastic time. And every time we get together to play, it's big fun.
How would we access that if we wanted to give it a listen?
I think it's on all the streaming platforms. It's on iTunes. It's on Amazon Music. It is on Spotify. So anywhere you wanna get to it, you can. I think you can also buy a physical CD still too, if you'd like. I think you can get that from Amazon.
Well, we're getting near the end of our time, but I did want to ask you, what does it mean to you to be leading a program of the stature of the University of Louisville School of Music Jazz Studies program, having been a student there yourself?
Well, first of all, it's extraordinarily humbling, and it's a great honor to be able to do it. Mike built a fantastic program while he was there. And
Talking about Mike Tracy.
Yeah, Mike Tracy. And the colleagues that I get to go to work with every day are some of the best musicians and best people that I know. And so that legacy of not only maintaining kind of what has already been established, but also looking forward and looking to understand that that is a place, if you're a student and you want to come and study jazz, not only are you going to be challenged musically, but you're also going to be challenged as a person. Because I always say, if you want the music out of your horn to change, it has to change in you first. There's nothing in that horn. You put it in there, and it's got to be in you before you can push it through there. And so we've got a great team of people in place to help those students and mentor them along the way, and some great resources to have some great artists come in and do some residencies. And so I'm thrilled to be there. I'm thrilled to get to work with the cats that I work with. It's really a kind of team effort, and I really look forward to all the groovy things that we'll be able to do.
Well, you mentioned some of your colleagues, and some of them will be playing with you tonight, right?
Absolutely.
So why don't you tell us about the lineup tonight and what's in store?
Well, Gabe Evans is the composer and pianist at the school, and he is really kind of spearheading, putting our playing together for tonight. He'll be on piano. Anson Banks, the great doctor, will be there playing trumpet. And we'll have Chris Fitzgerald on bass. And Chris has been fantastic. He's not only a fantastic bass player, but he's also a fantastic teacher as well. And we got a couple of guests, but not really guests. We have Gary Claude on drums, who's also a graduate of the program. He's not teaching there. Terry O'Mahony teaches there, and he couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately. But Gary's going to play, and Gary and I go way back to when we were just kids in Arkansas, just starting out trying to learn how to play the music. So it's always good when Gary's in the house. He's just such a musical drummer. And then Chad O'Brien, who's also a graduate of the UofL Jazz Studies program, will be joining us on trombone. Fantastic player, fantastic guy, and my comrade in arms at the Louisville Jazz Initiative.
Great. Well, thanks so much for spending these few minutes with me, and it was a great great to get to talk with you.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak and get to play tonight. So thank you.
It's going to be our pleasure, I'm sure. And before we close, I just wanted to give a shout out to Patrick and Pam Michael, our hosts at the Hill House, and congratulate them on another fine season that we all enjoy. So how about a round of applause for Pam and Patrick?
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everybody.